Now let's look at this top six in Super Rugby because it's actually shaping up into quite an interesting little setup over the next little while. So we've obviously got the Hurricanes, Chiefs, Blues, Crusaders, Brumbies, Reds as our six, and it's set up that way because the Waratahs, they even if they get a bonus point win and the Reds lose without a bonus point, the Waratahs can't get enough wins because it goes wins and then points differential to make it through. So that's why you got your top six there. But we're left in an interesting position here where a number of these teams are playing each other, particularly the New Zealand teams. And those New Zealand teams could really cause havoc with each other. The Blues and the Chiefs, that's a challenge for the Blues. The Crusaders and the Canes, both of those teams in difficult positions. And it offers, Bryn, possibly the Australian teams, a really good chance to actually sneak up the table.
Yeah, it does. I think the top three are going to be sorted. I just think anything below the three is going to be a little bit of movement. Like I think if the Crusaders win, then I think the Brumbies and the Reds will pretty much stay where they are. They might go fifth or sixth, swapping fifth or sixth. Because at the moment you've got the Hurricanes 55, Chiefs 46, the Crusaders, the Blues 38, Crusaders 36, and then 33 for the Brumbies at 32 for the Reds. So I think there's only going to be a little bit of movement depending if the Crusaders lose, which is a massive possibility depending on the squad that the Hurricanes do pick. But yeah, there is a bit of movement, I guess, with the derbies that are happening in New Zealand. But yeah, I think the real only movements, Ross, will just be in the kind of 4, 5, 6, because I think the Blues have got enough points. And yeah, the Hurricanes and the Chiefs have been able to get a lot more wins during the year.
Yeah, well, 1 and 2, they've stitched that up
They're done.
good and proper now. And the Hurricanes, they'll be thrilled about the fact that as long as they're in, unless, of course, they drop a qualifying final, which would send them down to the bottom of the seedings, which is a change that they've made this year.
Yeah.
Remember last year the Chiefs were beaten, but they didn't lose their place in the seedings, and they've responded to that, and I think fair enough too. So that's a bit of a wild card factor. But if as long as they keep winning, they're playing at home, which is it's a great place to be. Chiefs likewise have already nailed a home qualifying final as well against Team 5 or Team 6. No, it'll be probably Team 5, won't it? And it's in between the movement that still there's a potential there that the Blues aren't home and dry in third. They've got to go to Hamilton. And again, you sort of think, well, okay, who's going to pick what? The Blues have sort of looked a bit out of sorts, I think, in recent times. There's just something not quite right there. So they're a bit vulnerable because the Crusaders now got an opportunity to put the blowtorch on. I mean, the way the draw's worked out, it means we're not going to know for sure. But the Crusaders, they could get as high as third. They could also get as low as sixth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot to be decided in that last weekend. And I actually think they've done the draw pretty well this year. We had fewer derbies early on. We had more Trans-Tasman matches. And they've left some of the juicy games until really the business end of the season. And of course, you've got the Australian teams fighting amongst each other. I've been thinking for quite a while. I think we've got our 6.
Yeah.
I think we've had our 6 for a few weeks. It's just we still don't know the order of things.
And the Reds have tried to implode on it as best as they can.
Yeah. Poor old Leslie must just, I mean, they got there in the end, didn't they?
Yeah.
But they just went off script and nearly blew a gilt-edged opportunity to really move themselves up.
When I think about the Blues and the Chiefs, it's always a close encounter in the most part. So the Blues, I would imagine, would expect to at least get a bonus point loss out of that at the absolute minimum, because that's kind of Blues games tend to go that way against the Chiefs. So if that's the case, then they take third, Bryn, in my mind. And then from there, if I'm going on form, I'm thinking the Crusaders lose, the Brumbies win, and the Reds win. So then the Blues would come third, the Brumbies and Reds would get wins, and the Crusaders could quite possibly come sixth.
I think even if they do get a bonus point, I think they end up on 37 points. And then, yeah, you'd have to think that both the Reds playing the Drua at home and Moana at home, that they'd be thinking bonus points. So, yeah, there's a possibility that they do finish sixth, but then, the Hurricanes probably don't want that to happen. If you're being brutally honest, you probably want the Crusaders to get 2 points somehow, or being able to be beating the getting, well, they can't because they're obviously playing them on the weekend, so they're obviously going to try and beat them. So they're probably just wanting the Chiefs, to beat the Blues. Just gives them an opportunity as well. So, but yeah, It's funny, I think like TJ said, with how close the competition is, these derby games probably make it a little bit harder for the New Zealand teams to be able to finish where they want to. But yeah, it gives itself a pretty jam-packed action weekend coming up for New Zealand fans.
I love the way you worked all that out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of beyond me. I mean, maths was never my strong suit. In fact, what's the expression? I can't count the number of times I failed maths. So I just think it's one of those weekends where you just watch it unfold game by game. Those live scoreboards keep you score tables, points tables keep you up with what's happening. There's still a bit can go on, which is great because you don't want everything set in concrete going into the last weekend of the round robin. You want the potential there for a bit of movement. Who's going to be playing who's going to be travelling? As I say, all we know, 1 and 2 are going to be at home, but we still got the rest of it to decide, and it's just going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold.
The funny thing is that for me, even if the Crusaders are 6th, they still sit as probably the team outside of the top 2 that's most likely to win.
Who wants to play them? Who wants to play the Crusaders anywhere? Your place, their place.
After seeing them step up in those last 5-10 minutes, and admittedly, Brynner, I'd love your take on this.
Yep.
When the Chiefs took the 3 points, I was shouting for them to go to the corner. Like, I just felt it was time to knock them out, It was time to go in there, either have field position or score points. And I felt like that allowed the Crusaders almost back into the game.
Hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? We can talk about it as analysts after a game. And it's quite funny over here in Japan, there's been a few decisions in and around penalties and one team winning the game and then one team losing the game. So, look, to be honest, Ross, when I saw it, yes, I think you say that now, and I probably do agree at the time. I was like, this is a really good time. If they do get a try here, I think it's going to be too hard for this Crusaders side for the rest of the game. But, going out to 8 points, you've still got to score you got to score a try and a penalty. Like, I didn't think it shouldn't have been that big of a deal where it probably cost them the game. Now, after that decision from the penalty, that's where they probably lost the game. The things that kind of the domino effects that fell post that. But I thought 8 points. To be honest, I didn't think it was a bad decision in the end, going out to 2 scores. They had to score 2 scores anyway for the Crusaders. There was just a couple of moments post that the Crusaders were able to implement and execute under pressure to be able to give themselves to win. Like, if you even look, I think the biggest thing from this, Ross, was that even from that 50-22, the Crusaders have a line out 5 metres out. They do an overthrow, and then from that, the Chiefs had the ability to be able to exit the ball, kick it long, kick it 60-70 metres down the field, and the Crusaders have to attack. But they got a knock on, and then from that, they end up scoring a try. Do you know what I mean? So I actually just think if you are the Chiefs looking at themselves, post that decision, they were able to put the game away, and the Crusaders were able to just do it a little bit better when the occasion came.
Nothing wrong with taking the 3 if you can secure the ball from the restart, have a good exit, take the play back into the opposition half. But somehow in these big games, that becomes quite a difficult thing to do sometimes. And I recall the moment you were talking about. I think they sensed they had a bit of an overlap of 3-2, but where the percentage play absolutely would have been to hoof the ball downfield, get it out of the red zone, and make them come back your defence.
Yeah.
But as soon as you give them a set piece inside your danger zone, well, you're asking for trouble.
I think on the other foot, the Crusaders' line-out drive defence has been not up to its usual standards over the last little while. Like, it was impenetrable for years. And Aotearoa and the Chiefs are very good at that point. I was just sitting there as a Chiefs man going, that's...
I love that variation they pulled off too, where the try that Quintu Pires scored. Because, I mean, it's an art form, the line-out drive, but I just love the way that teams have grown their ability to tack. Yes, you use the line-out as the basis, but it's not necessarily, tuck it under the hooker's wing and let's see if we can bulldoze our way over. Teams have gotten better and better at defending it, and so the attacking team now, the onus is on them to come up with variations, and we've seen some beauties, and that was one of them. I mean, gosh, I don't know whether he even got a hand laid on him.
What made that one so good is because, to your point, Ross, the Aotearoa effect and even the drive is a big staple of what the Chiefs were able to do against the Crusaders, because they scored a try, they're thinking, right, we don't want to be able to go through them. And if you look at Dom Gardner, he's actually quite isolated because he's at the back of the line out. So when you see Quinta Paia get that ball, because the Crusaders are thinking it's going to be a drive, Dom Gardner's a little bit late, and then you see David Havili and Dallas McLeod isolated on pretty much 4 players. So the decision making in and around what Davey and Dallas had to do, they had 3 or 4 multiple options that they had to defend with how that attack was, because they were so tight. Dom Gardner was so tight and not able to help out Dallas and Davey, which then Quinta Paia goes untouched because it was just way too hard to defend. So, you talk around, I guess, manipulating a defense. That was a great way that the Chiefs were able to manipulate it through the dominance of that forward pack and the line-out drive being a genuine option. And then you look at the attack outside that. It was a highlighted play that I put on. Anytime you can go untouched, TJ, for a move, you've done something right on all facets.
Spoken like a true back, eh? Anytime I can go through untouched.
100%. But what I liked about it, Bryn, was there was a time there where middle and back line out ball was the only way to attack. That you never threw it to the front to attack. But the way that they, like you say, they used the front line out ball to somehow light up the backs, which 5 years ago just never was a thing.
Well, the good thing about it is that it gave the ball to the halfback. So the halfback's your best distributor. And even though you're winning at the front, the fact that there wasn't a 7 in that kind of bunter position or the guy to be able to go for a drive, that's a pretty good cue for a guy at the back of the line out to think, okay, they're going to go for a drive here. But you've still got to think about it in that part of the area of the field. But because it was given to the 9, being able to get that ball out, like I said to you, the backs were on backs and they're able to have an opportunity to be able to manipulate Davis and Dallas, which was probably one of the reasons why. Well, that is the reason why they scored. So yeah, they just manipulated the defense through some really good prep. The forwards did their job early part of that game to be able to think the Crusaders are going to have to be really tight, and then they were able to pull the trigger and Quinta Paia go untouched.
One of the things that the Blues had been doing really well this season was using the front of the line out, just securing the ball. And this is where Anton Segner showed that another string to his bow, that front of the line, that explosive jump that he's got at the front of the line out. They were disputing a lot of line out ball at the front, and if not the front, the middle, obviously where it's Sam Darry or Paddy Tuipulotu. And they hadn't been using the back ball, which for a while in New Zealand rugby was almost an obsession. It was almost as if we can't attack on anything else other than back of the line out ball. And we used to get ourselves into so much trouble. You think back to the days of the early 2000s when we'd be up against the Wallabies and then the line out would implode and things would start going wrong. And so they were used. And then for some reason in the game against the Hurricanes, they went away from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, line out, it's such an important part. I mean, just mentioned the Blues, I think half of their tries originate at line out time. It's such an important part of the game, and with perhaps reducing the number of reasons to have scrums in the game, which I'm not sure how much in favour of that I am, but the line out just becomes paramount as a launching pad. But I think we've seen this year that you don't actually have to chuck the ball down the back for it to be good attacking ball. If you've got those sort of variations in your game, and surely the most important thing is securing it.
Yeah, and the variation doesn't have to be that complicated. One person's running around back and forth, and sometimes you felt like it took 10 seconds for the forwards to figure out where they were in the line out before the ball went.
Ring a rosy.
And it seems to have been simplified, Brenner, in favour of the thing that happens after it being more complicated.
You kind of have your 2-3 phase strike. Like I think whether it's a special, whether it's just a line out, obviously it's pretty important. You want to be able to try and manipulate the area of the field in the line out to be able to dictate how you want to attack. But yeah, you look at the Hurricanes, even the Chiefs in their years, the first 3 phase strikes have been, probably the best part around their attack. So yeah, I think that's probably what happens after that. And I think if you are able to, I guess, win the collision of those first 3 to 4 strikes, you give yourself a really good chance to be able to break open teams. So we've seen that especially with the New Zealand teams, the Hurricanes for the most of the year. But I know the Chiefs, when they have Damien McKenzie, they've had some adjustments in their attack, being able to get the ball where they want to. But yeah, keep it simple. That's probably the best way to put it. And when teams do that very, very well, you're able to probably score points off that.